Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
And very good morning to you. This is Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And this morning we are graced by members of Law Asia who are having their Golden Jubilee this year. And joining us this morning is Mr. Chris Leong, the President-elect of Law Asia, and also Mr. Prashant Kumar, who is the current President of Law Asia, and also Upul Jayasuriya, Vice President of Law Asia and the Chairman of the Organizing Committee. Gentlemen, very good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for being on our program.
Good morning.
Thank you. And tell us, how important is events such as this in the pursuit of a robust judiciary in our region? We'll start with you, Chris.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think international events like the Law Asia Conference focuses attention on issues of a broad array, not just on judicial issues, but it touches on various aspects of the law. I hear yesterday at the conference that Sri Lanka is going through a constitutional reformation period.
That's right.
And that is something that a conference like Law Asia would be interested in, and that's why we had a couple of sessions on constitutional law.
Good. And Mr. Prashant, how about in India? What's the state of affairs in India? Because obviously from Sri Lanka we tend to look towards our superpower neighbor for guidance sometimes, for inspiration at all times.
No, it is, it's no superpower or something, it is how people's heart meet. That
Right.
should be the criteria. And because India is a bigger country, the complexity of issues arising is also huge. And one of the things which, last year emerged was that after 30 years we had first majority government coming into power. And the first thing which was done by this majority government with a complete unanimity of parliament. And here it was happening for the first time that even the opposition is completely united. There was only one vote against. And the parliament passed a law in which they tried to make inroads of executive to play a role in appointments of judges, which was earlier through various succession of judgments
Right.
was kept out. So there was no political participation in the appointment of judges to superior courts in India. And it was such an emphatic expression of legislative power, because complete unanimity of parliament and then more than half the assemblies of federating states in India also endorsing it. But the Supreme Court, in a challenge by the Bar Association, struck down the law as unconstitutional. So this is a big development on the front of independence of judiciary, in which the basic principle which has been propounded is that there is separation of powers and there is no role of executive to play in recommending the judges, but the subsequent process is to find about the credentials and other things. That role government can play, but not who will be the judge and who will not be the judge. That recommendation has to come from judiciary.
And Mr. Jayasuriya, Mr. Prashant has just mentioned about how important it is, or alludes to the importance of having a majority in government. How important is, or what sort of role does that play, having a majority government, as opposed to a government that is sort of a coalition? In Sri Lanka we have 47 different organizations that came into play to achieve change in 2015. So how important is this majority governance when it comes to the judiciary?
as you saw it happening, unfolding in 2015 within the, if I right, I think that was within the first 100 days.
Yeah.
So the government that was in power at that time had only 45 seats. That was a minority government.
Yeah.
But they managed to win the hearts of the opposition also. Of course, many of the salutary factors that were to be included in the constitutional change had to be struck down. But they managed to come out with something reasonable, and the changes were done to set up a new constitutional council, because good governance was very much in question during the previous regime at the time of prior to the 2015 January. So that has been now addressed with the new independent commissions being set up as the Bribery and Corruption Commission, then the appointment process of judges, then appointing of high officers like the Attorney General and so on, and even the Auditor General. So there again, that this independent the Constitutional Council that have been now created with this amendment, which should have been having more people from the civil society. That is what was proposed at the time of the amendment, 7 from the civil society, but then with the opposition's influence that became 3, and then 7 from the parliamentary members and ex-officio people. So there has been something that has been achieved. So with the majority. So, and also this is different to the 5/6 majority that was held by the Jayawardena government in 1977, because that was only one party system. Yeah. But now in this parliament there are at least two major parties. There are others also. Yeah. And in correct situations, correct instances, they have been supporting the major moves like the right to information bill. I think everyone voted for it. Everyone in the parliament voted for it. Okay. And also I see that even by default, the establishment of Missing Persons Officers Act has been passed with unanimity.
Indeed. In deference to our guests this morning, we won't discuss the behaviour that went on in Parliament this morning or that day. But Mr. Joshi, how will this help us? There are around 900,000 cases on average, a backlog that's carried forward every year. And it obviously means that there is a delay in law in all these cases. How will we, how far have we got to try and reducing this backlog?
But we have to come out with a different system. I think the system that we have adopted so far has failed. Firstly, not only the lawyers but the judges and the litigants all should be ready to take up their cases fast. Sometimes it is more than the judges and the lawyers. Even the litigants want their cases kept pending and then postponed, because they come to court and they get some interim order, and they try to live with it forever without having a finality to the issue in court. So, and also the judges. And sometimes when they spread the role of the cases over sometimes 1 year. Yeah. You come to court on one day and then the next date of trial maybe 7-8 months later. Right. So they also have to play a role in this. Right. And also that cannot be left in the hands of the judiciary alone. Even the judges should be made accountable, the lawyers should be made accountable, and in the case of their promotions, as it may arise from time to time, should the authorities, maybe the Judicial Service Commission, should take into consideration all these factors.
Mm-hmm. And now that we have the two guests here from overseas, let's ask them. Mr. Chris, in Malaysia, what's the delay process like?
We used to have a huge backlog of cases, in the region of 80 to 90,000 cases per year, backed up in the court system. That was until 2009. Right. In 2009, there was a change, a reform, an overhaul of the administration of justice system in Malaysia. And today, some 6-7 years later, we have cleared all of the backlog.
Right.
Yeah.
So justice is quite, the cases are heard quite quickly and so on?
Yes, cases are heard expeditiously now. On average, from the time a case is first filed in court to the time it is disposed of, it takes 9 months.
Right.
And most of the cases are concluded in any event within 1 year.
And what happens if this 9 months, is that sort of a yardstick, or what happens if you don't finish in 9 months? Who gets told off?
I think firstly the lawyers get told off.
Oh, I see. Okay, it's back to them.
Yes, I think several things were identified. You obviously have to identify the problem, or what's causing the problem.
Yeah.
And I think a couple of things. One, obviously, lawyers, being busy professionals, tended to what do you call, take a bit of time in the conduct of cases going through the court system, and also as well with judges. Judges being busy under pressure to hear cases, not only hear it but also to make a decision and thereafter reflect that decision in writing, tended to take more time. So it required a certain level of discipline, both of lawyers as well as of the judges in terms of managing their time. So that's one area. The other area was to just ensure that there was a singular message to everybody, that there will be a concerted effort to push through an efficient system. So you can't have half the profession saying, yes, we would do this, and the other half is having a laissez-faire attitude.
So sort of involvement of all the stakeholders too.
That's right. So that's achieved by the case management system.
Right.
So previously, lawyers had the run of the case management system. So in 2009, there was a shift. Case management became within the control of judges.
Right.
The judges set the timeline, and they set pretty strict timelines for moving the case forward at every step.
And I suppose the problem is far more exaggerated because of sheer numbers in India. Is that right, Mr. Prashant?
Yes. India currently has a humongous backlog of 27 million cases.
Wow.
And when you look to this figure, it is overwhelming, but it is also, that the sheer strength population of India is also overwhelming. But concerted efforts have been going on from the last decade how to improve the systems. And one thing which is there is that as far as the current filings and disposals are concerned, not much addition is being made now. But the older cases, they are still stuck and have not been able to be disposed. So what is being done, again, case management practices are being introduced, and the legislative reform has been carried out, fixing time limits for disposal of a case, how many adjournments lawyers can seek, putting a clamp on it. And also one thing which is being pursued and has a significant effect and will expand as a conscious drive is to mandate the judiciary by a legislative amendment in the procedure code to refer the cases which can be resolved through mediation to mediation.
Right.
And right now those cases which have been referred to mediation, their resolution rate is exceptionally high. So this experience has worked, and I think if it is pushed properly, of course we have to work with all the stakeholders, lawyers, parties and the court, that can be a very good way to bring down the pendency.
And Mr. Jayasuri, what about in Sri Lanka? What steps are we doing to hasten the process?
Yeah, before I come to that, I must also address another aspect of it, how it has impacted on the country, these laws delays. Sri Lanka's position in the ease of doing business is at 107.
I'm going to have to just interrupt you there. We've got a breaking news item. We'll just go to the news now and come right back soon after that. And welcome back after that wonderful sporting news. Let's go back to Mr. Jayasuriya. How did you say it's been impacting on
Yes,
on our country?
Sri Lanka's position in the ease of doing business is 107 out of nearly 180 countries. And one of those, there are 10 criteria that are considered for that. One of the criteria where we are worst is the litigation and the enforcement of contracts, and that takes, according to the World Bank Index, it takes about 1,100 days. Sometimes I would think it's even an underestimation. So something really has to be done soon. And this again this is not a matter where the politicians can engage or the parliamentarians can engage with the judiciary, but the Judicial Service Commission should take this matter into consideration and then discuss with the Bar Association and come out with some immediate measures that has to put this situation right. Otherwise we are going from bad to worse, because nothing can bring us up in that scale and then attract investments into this country, creating employment and making the better economy without putting these matters right.
And how will modernization of the court system help in achieving this?
In doing that, it is not only the commitment by the three parties that I mentioned earlier, but also there should be some legislative changes that have to be done, like giving dates for the lawyers, or the time that has to be consumed by for each trial, and how many days you can have, maybe 2-3 days maximum, and then finish it. If it is argument, not have days and days for argument, give half an hour or maybe 45 minutes per party and then finish it off. Sometimes these are the problems that draw back the development. People don't see why these things are happening, because there are respective parties in the society, they all have to take the blame for it. So now the ball is in the court of the Judicial Service Commission to put these things right. And there are other instances also where the equality, we all talk about equality before courts, but it so happens that in Sri Lanka, some people, affluent people, powerful politicians, they go before court and they get a different treatment. And the poor man going before court, and then if he has stolen some, say, 10,000 rupees, he will not be bailed out for weeks.
Right.
Where a man who has stolen 70 million rupees can come out in 2-3 days.
Indeed. What's your experiences in your part of the world, Mr. Chris?
Well, yeah, in Malaysia, certainly the introduction of technology into our courts has greatly contributed to clearing of the entire backlog. Just for example, previously all filings of cases were done physically with paper, travel to the court counter. We can now file court papers from our offices.
Right.
So it takes care of several resources in terms of time, cost, paperwork. The other thing is in the court itself, for the hearings, we have what we call the CRT system, which is the camera recording and transcription system. What that means is that the judges no longer need to take copious notes, verbatim notes, word-for-word notes of what is said by the lawyers or what is said by the witnesses. Because it's all recorded.
Right.
The courtroom is fitted out with several cameras that is voice sensitive. So it picks up on the voice, and the camera pans to the speaker. And there are microphones.
And it's all being recorded.
And it's all being recorded.
Right.
There is now no longer any dispute as to what was said, what was not said. It also, in a way, brought a little bit more discipline within the courtroom itself in terms of the behavior of lawyers and judges, because it is all recorded.
Did it become less colourful?
I think you tend to forget that the cameras and the recording is there.
Right.
Once you get into the case.
Right.
So I wouldn't say it adds any more drama to the case. It carries on as per normal. But what it did do was, I'll give you for example, previously where everything had to be taken down by hand, A judge typically would take about 10 to 12 witnesses in a 5 working day week. With the recording now, could only take 4 witnesses in the 5 Monday to Friday week in the course of trial. But now with the camera recording and transcription technology, typically a judge can go through 10 to 12 witnesses. So that's, I think, an improvement in efficiency of about 60 to 70%.
Right. I'm getting a question in, sometimes we do, and a viewer is asking, has there been any significant contribution that was made in the field of law in the countries involved between the last Law Asia and this? Between your last Law Asia and here? Which of, any of you, and apart from Sri Lanka, we've made some progress as well.
Well, I think between the last Law Asia conference and this, it's just been slightly under a year.
Right.
The last Law Asia conference was in Sydney in November,
Right.
And we're here now in Colombo in August.
Right.
Significant, it's a question of relativity. Things always take a little bit of time to change, especially when you're talking about evolutionary change as opposed to revolutionary change. And the law usually takes the route of evolutionary change. Even with the current, as I understand it, the current constitutional reforms that Sri Lanka is looking into.
Yeah.
I mentioned to I was having a conversation yesterday with Dr. Jayampathy
Vikramarata.
That's right. And he's involved in that process. And I did ask him a question, is there a timeline? How long will it take? And he says that it will take as long as we need to get it right, and hopefully that does not take too long. So that is what we are looking at. The important thing is for us at Law Asia is that we are constantly engaging in the various jurisdictions in the Law Asia, within the Law Asia scope, and providing wherever we can inputs.
I see. Anupul, what about in Sri Lanka? Would you say the changes that we would have been able to implement since January 2015 and now, are they evolutionary or revolutionary, somewhere in between?
Well, justice delayed is justice denied. In the meantime, there is no quick process for these things.
Right.
If you try to go the shortcut and then try to quicken the whole process, then the justice may not be served.
Right.
So in the meantime, but I find even in the Supreme Court there are certain developments. Like, for instance, we never had a situation where 3 benches were sitting of the 11 judges. 3 benches were sitting every day and take up cases, and now it is happening. So that's a good development. In the meantime, there should be some accountability at all levels. Not only at the Supreme Court levels, but also at the Court of First Instance, the District Court and the Magistrates Court. So there again, I think the Judicial Service Commission has to enter into a discussion with the bar and then come out with these suggestions and also make recommendations to the Parliament. Though the separation of powers is there, yes, very much, but in the meantime we have to involve ourselves with the legislature to legislate wherever necessary, maybe through the Law Commission. So we need to have some rules that will change the systems where the time consumed by each case in the argument process or even the examination of witnesses and cross-examination, there should be some amount of time allocated, because you can't have months or Sundays given for one particular case. What about all the other cases?
Right.
They are waiting in the process. So this has to happen, and it has to happen soon.
Good. And just as we come towards the end of our segment this morning, Could I ask you both, Mr. Chris and Mr. Prashant here, do you have dignitaries who arrive in your within your court system and all get remanded in your countries? VIPs, very important people.
Yes, I think, earlier there was a huge, as we were discussing informally earlier, that, politicians and other bigwigs, as soon as they have to appear in court, there'll be a sudden illness, and, instead of going to court
Is
or
they
to
perfectly
remand.
all right when they arrive to court to come by car and they walk up the steps and so on?
No, in courts everybody has to behave the same way. No, special protocol is to be extended. And nowadays there are a lot of cases going on, and this question was put to me on the national television in India also, when two main politicians from Congress party had to appear in a case before a magistrate, and all the efforts were being made that somehow to get a stay or this thing of the proceedings. So at that time also I had said that instead of avoiding, these people have to set an example that when a court of law summons anybody, it is duty of every citizen to come and face the court.
Do they, when they are remanded, these dignitaries and VIPs and so on, do they end up in the prison hospital?
Yes, most of them, and one of the reasons is that though one says that judges or others may be favoring them, but just see the horns of dilemma. If somebody is claiming I am not well, and the court declines that, no, you go to the prison cell, and this becomes a human rights issue as well, and God forbid anything happens, that judge, that court's career is finished.
Yeah, but in the meantime there is another aspect to it. The judges can always refer it to the judicial medical officer to find out whether the man is sick or not.
That is what it is done, but then
here it doesn't happen in Sri Lanka. That's a problem.
Upul, then credibility of all the things, that how your medical board is functioning, whether the doctors and hospitals are obliging, it's all a mixed kind of a thing.
But as we come to the end, are we agreed that the law is headed in the right direction in our region?
See, from Law Asia we are making consistent efforts that we are able to contribute in some way or the other, and that's how even in the current conference here we incorporated a very strong judicial stream in which various jurisdictions can discuss what are the best practices which are evolving in terms of case management, in terms of dealing with the backlog, in terms of how independence of judiciary is to be protected, how cooperation from the lawyers is to be sought, how bar associations are to be integrated in a dialogue with the court administrators to improve the functioning. So I think this is a very positive change, and judiciary stands with the profession is very much signified by the presence of 15 chief justices or their representatives from 15 countries to stand by Law Asia in its Golden Jubilee year, celebrated together with the lawyers fraternity. And also I think Chief Justice of Sri Lanka took that opportunity to host a roundtable meeting of these judges to call for further strengthening of the regional principles, which all again were created by Law Asia's judicial sanction. Those are called Beijing principles. To bring them in tune with time.
Chris Leong, Prashant Kumar and Upul Jayasuriya, many thanks for joining us on Newsline. Sorry it's taken a bit of an overrun, but in the meantime, have an excellent day ahead. Take care and God bless.